name is Jill LaFawn, and I'm Director of Project Find here in Bloomington. I'd like to welcome all of you to our panel discussion this evening. I have an announcement to make. I know that many of you here tonight are here for a class for extra credit. I'm announcing that immediately following this panel discussion, you will need to pick up one of these from Ann Reese, who will be in the back of the room. She'll have these. And this is what you need to prove that you were here. And we will give them after the panel is over, back in the back, okay? I also want to make you aware of some other things which will be occurring as we continue our observance of World AIDS Day. Tomorrow at noon at the International Center, there'll be a video, Women and AIDS in Zimbabwe. I saw this video last year, and it's excellent. And I would encourage you to go to the International Center and see that video. And on Saturday, there will be a program at Planned Parenthood, sponsored by Planned Parenthood. It will be at the Monroe County Public Library, and that will be talking with your children about AIDS. We've had a number of events this week, and I think probably for me, it's been very exciting to see the cooperation between campus and city. Representing the city here this evening is Michael Bunnell, who's a city council person, and Michael has something to share with us.
It's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the city and read the following proclamation. Whereas World Health Organization has designated December 1 of each year as a World AIDS Day, a day to expand and strengthen the worldwide effort to stop the spread of HIV/AIDS, and whereas World AIDS Day 1994, AIDS in Families focuses on how families are affected by HIV/AIDS, how families can become more effective in both HIV/AIDS prevention and care, and how families can contribute to the global efforts against HIV/AIDS. And whereas World AIDS Day provides an opportunity to focus on HIV infection and AIDS, caring for people with HIV infection and AIDS, and learning about HIV/AIDS. And whereas the number of people diagnosed with HIV/AIDS in the United States continues to increase, with an estimated 1 in 250 Americans currently HIV positive. And whereas HIV infection affects all segments of Indiana's population, single men and women, husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, and children. And whereas 82% of the Hoosiers infected with HIV are unaware of their infection, now therefore I, Tonalia Allison, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby proclaim December 1, 1994 as AIDS Awareness Day, and urge all citizens to take part in the activities and observances designed to increase awareness and understanding of HIV/AIDS as a global challenge, to take part in HIV/AIDS prevention activities and programs, to treat those affected with HIV/AIDS with dignity and compassion, and to join the global effort to prevent the further spread of HIV/AIDS. In witness thereof, I have here to set my hand and cause to be affixed the seal of the Bloomington this 7th day of October, 1994. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The topic of this evening's panel discussion is living with HIV in Bloomington. And we've got a wide spectrum of individuals' viewpoints represented here. To my immediate left is Lon Strauss, who is a buddy with the Buddy program here in Bloomington with Project Find. Lon is also the recent winner of the statewide Buddy of the Year award, so we're very proud of Lon. To Lon's left is Jeff Kittle, who is a person living with AIDS. To Jeff's left is Michael Howland, who is a person living with AIDS. And to Michael's left is Sue Klaus, whose brother died of AIDS. We'd like to begin with giving the panelists an opportunity to speak briefly about their perspective on HIV and AIDS and living with this disease. And after that, we'd like to open it up for questions from you. I'm certain that I speak for all the panelists when I say that we encourage questions, we like questions, and we'd be very happy to try to answer them. So Lon, I think we'll start with you.
Thanks. Basically, my role dealing with AIDS in this community is that of a caregiver. As Jill mentioned, I'm a buddy with the Buddies program. Buddies volunteers provide psychosocial support for people who are HIV/AIDS challenged. We have a group of volunteers who do that. We also provide support groups for people who are HIV positive, help them deal with their problems, daily stresses that the system put on them, stresses that bigotry puts on them, just day-to-day hassles that they have with everyday living. Officially, I have had 5 Buddies clients. Unofficially, probably that many too. There are people within our groups who are not necessarily comfortable with the group situation, so sometimes unofficially we work with those people individually.
Okay. Thank you.
I've been living in Bloomington for about, I guess, 4 years. And being in Bloomington was probably the best thing that could have happened for me. To be diagnosed here, to get involved in the system here, has made things much easier for me, also for my family. They're from up near Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it's nice that my family has been supportive, extremely supportive. It's rather strange, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I came to Bloomington in 1989, entering a doctoral program in Japanese language at IU. So I have been living here since that time, except for when I was abroad in Japan. I was diagnosed in Bloomington, and I feel that I'm receiving very good care here. My family lives out of state on the East Coast, and they're very supportive. They're doing everything that they can do at a distance, and it's hard for me to imagine living in a small community like this and having so much support, and also the university and people trying to help me continue my studies, whatever, in a larger town. I can't see that happening. So I have mostly positive things to say about the actual care coordination, medical care, psychosocial support. But the aspects of the small town life, the prejudice and ignorance and that are also here. So it's a trade-off, but I feel like it's still on the positive side for me personally. Is that enough?
My brother died of AIDS in January 1993, and I was his, I guess you would say, buddy. I was his caregiver. Much of that care was given through the years over the telephone, and then when he became sick, I would go to him in California, and I was with him in California when he died in January of '93. I thought at that time that I was going to be returning to my home, which I make my home in Bedford, not in Bloomington. And I was looking forward to coming home and being wrapped in the arms of my friends. And when I returned to Bedford, I had to give up my job because of prejudice. They didn't want me to use the telephone at work. They didn't want me to use the bathroom at work. They didn't want me to eat because they were afraid they might pick up something that I might have eaten from, or that I might eat off of something that they were eating. it was just too, they didn't tell me to leave, I just couldn't take the pressure, and I left, went into a serious depression, and Project Find brought me right out of it, and I've since joined the buddy system, and basically that's what I'm here to tell you tonight.
I think at this time we'd be willing to entertain questions from the audience about the experience of living with HIV in Bloomington. Yes?
Are any of you involved with anyone, and do they have HIV? Are they diagnosed?
Okay. The question is, are any of the people who are HIV infected here involved with anybody, and are they HIV infected?
My ex-lover, we were together for about a year and a half. He was actually a full professor here at IU, and which is really strange because you'd think that someone that educated couldn't be that liberal. Well, I'm a farm boy, what can I say? But the atmosphere here in Bloomington is basically wide open for anyone that has any kind of problem with the disease to get help. So, anyway.
Michael?
Well, I'm also gay. I don't have a boyfriend at this time, but I think it's important when you ask, are you involved with anyone? I have very close friends who are very supportive of me. We have long-term relationships. Your question is really, are you in a sexual relationship? And the answer is no. But it's important to keep in mind that although I'm gay, I have very long-term, stable, important relationships.
Thank you. Yes?
No, I don't. The question is, do I have a legal case against the establishment I was working for? No, I could have, but my husband's self-employed, and I didn't want to draw that much attention to myself, and so I have not taken any action. I did do something about it. I went to Project Find, and I went to, I got support, I joined a support group who is very supportive, and I got active, and I'm active, somewhat active here in Bedford, or Bloomington, and becoming pretty active also in Bedford. That's the only way I can think of to answer your question, but that's a very good question, thank you.
I think that you'll find as a phenomenon that many people who have their rights violated because they're dealing with HIV or because they're friends with somebody with HIV, whether it's employment discrimination or whether it's other types of discrimination, housing discrimination, many times people with HIV infection are really feel powerless. They may feel ill, they may not feel they have the energy to pursue a legal battle. They certainly often do not have the financial means to pursue a legal battle. And indeed, many times, if they get into a hassle with an insurance company or get into a hassle, a protracted legal battle, literally many times they just wait for the person to die rather than, take the lawsuit to trial. That's a very, very big challenge as far as encouraging people to speak out against discrimination they've faced.
Another issue that I would like to address relative to Sue and the Bedford connection. I've been with the program for over 5 years, and I have to admit to becoming a little bit complacent at times because I've lived in Bloomington for 20 years, I'm accustomed to the university type mentality and the energy that it lends to this community. And all too often I forget that a few miles up or down the road are communities that are at the other end of the spectrum. communities in which family members who die of AIDS have no notice in the newspaper. Friends are not welcome at the funeral services. Grave sites have been desecrated when they found out that this person died of AIDS. So I think that it's important for all of us to keep our consciousness up and realize that this isn't necessarily the real world, and you may return to your hometown and find a whole bottle full of prejudices that you weren't quite expecting.
Yes.
Do you feel that the majority of prejudices are out of hatred or out of just fear for a new disease, fear of a newer disease?
Statistically, nationwide, it actually falls pretty even both ways. It's fear of transmission, ignorance, not knowing the facts about HIV, and it's also, the other end of the spectrum, where people are worried about, what's going to happen. It seems to fall out, pretty much half and half. Yes.
This is for the time in Jack. How did you tell your family and friends that you had HIV, and how did they react? And also, did you have any really close friends that turned away from you?
You want me to? Yeah, that's fine. The question was, how did I tell my family and friends that I had HIV, and did I have any friends that turned on me, or I don't know what it was. Of friends that weren't there to support me? I hope I don't get upset about this, but no, I'm all right. Well, I didn't. When I found out I was HIV positive, I also was very sick. I had been living in Japan and I had been misdiagnosed. So when I came back to the U.S., I thought I had a minor illness, and I was told that I had full-blown AIDS. Then I was hospitalized, and so I didn't have. Right when I told my parents, I was very sick, and we all thought I was going to die. So instantly, they had to deal with that. And they did very well. My parents have always been supportive of me on some level. I was always very open with them about my being gay. I've tried to include them in my life even when they didn't want me to. They didn't want to hear about my boyfriend. They didn't want to hear, they didn't feel like I was doing responsible things with my life. I should have been a doctor, and instead I'm off going to Japan and studying literature. So there were problems, but we had consistently worked them out, and basically there was a base of love to build on. And so when this happened, it never even occurred to me that they would not support me, and they did support me. So, and they've done that in terms of being there financially. They have been there emotionally. They started coming to Bloomington. They had never really come to Bloomington before. They've done that several times. And my brothers and sisters and my extended family are all totally supportive as well. And I think it's really partly because I've been, what can they say? I've been open my entire life with them. So there were no surprises as far as my family my family's concerned. And that's true also of 95% of my friends. Well, I've had one very, traumatic experience with a friend who really totally, I don't know how to put it. It's like she retroactively defined my life. Despite the fact that we had spent virtually every day together for the past the time that I was in Bloomington, and we had dinner together 3 or 4 times a week, and we had studied in 2 classes together, she started saying things like, well, it's really just a gay disease, isn't it? I read that in People magazine. Or, well, people consider your behavior very questionable in the past. But she really wouldn't define what that meant. And in the beginning, I was just traumatized by this experience. If anyone said this to me, I would just say, I didn't say anything back. And then she basically stopped seeing me altogether. Although we lived in Bloomington, I was actually moving into the same building. Finally, I told her off. I said, "You're not my friend." She invited me over when I moved into her building. And she said, "Do you want to come see my apartment?" And I said, "You haven't been here for 9 months. My life has gone on. You weren't here. Bye. You're not my friend." And, well, no. It's a very painful thing to have to get to that point of telling somebody that. It really made me feel horrible. I mean, I went to my apartment and cried afterwards because it's an ugly thing to have to say to someone, and there was no hope of it changing her. So that was my only really bad experience. And I don't feel like she's learned anything from it. She could have apologized after that. I still would forgive her. But she hasn't changed. She's decided to totally deny everything.
One thing that I want to point out, too, it is true that to this point in the epidemic, in this country only, the majority of the cases have been among gay men. But as we're talking about World AIDS Day, the majority of the cases in the world are heterosexually transmitted. And in fact, the audience in this room represents the two fastest growing groups of infected people in our country, which are adolescents and women of childbearing age. So when we talk about World AIDS Day, and the focus today is AIDS in families, we want to keep in mind that the face of the epidemic is changing, and not just affecting one group, but rather we want to focus on behaviors that put us at risk and put our families at risk, however you define family. Yes?
Do you think, those of you living in AIDS, do you think that the social support that you get from your family and your friends is pretty much critical in keeping you well, like emotionally and physically?
Absolutely. Without the support and understanding and caring, you really don't have a leg to stand on. My mother's reaction to when I told her, which I told her over the phone, was, "Well, it's just a disease. Don't worry about it. You're not sick yet, are you? No. Then don't worry about it." And in the next breath, I told her that I was gay. That was a little harder for her to accept. But after about 2-3 minutes, maybe 5, she was her normal self again, no problems. So without that support and caring, in fact, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving, I had gone home for Thanksgiving, was there for about 2 days, and lo and behold, I got sick. So my mother drove me from up near Fort Wayne, Indiana, here in about 3 hours' time, which is pretty quick. Normally it takes almost 4 hours. And she put me in the hospital, but you know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's easy to become a wimp. When you're sick, you don't feel well, people pile on this extra sympathy. And even though it's nice to have, it probably isn't the best for an individual to have at that point in time. You got to keep going.
And I would like to add from a caregiver's standpoint, actually being able to step back and observe the dynamics of social and family support, how very important it is. These two guys are lucky. We've had people in the program who are totally written off by their family. Their friends drop off by the wayside as they have repeated hospitalizations. Fewer and fewer people come to visit with them, which was exactly the experience that I had with my current buddy client for Thanksgiving. He had plans all set up and everything just sort of got changed. So you will find people who have no support. You will find people who have more support than you can ever imagine. The family dynamics are very widely varied.
Yes.
I was wondering, just like, who primarily the people who utilize the buddy client system, are those mostly people who don't have a family or friend support system? And I'm also wondering, like, to what extent the buddy's role as for those clients who do have a support structure. That's kind of all they get with the family.
Go ahead.
The question was what type of support?
I'm sorry. Could you speak up just a little bit?
The question was what type of support do the buddies supply for people who already have good support systems? We've had clients who, in fact, have good family and friend support systems. Some of them have had lovers. One thing that a buddy represents to those people is a separate party who's not involved in the dynamics of the family or the spats and life of the lover or things like that. So this is a person who can step out of the picture and be more subjective and listen to what their fears and angers are and have sometimes a clearer picture on it. So those people can utilize the system as well. The relationship that a buddy and a client have, we try to do personal matching because our program is fairly small as opposed to in large metropolitan areas. So we try to match them up with interests. Some of those matches are just very casual, dinner once a week, phone conversation once a week. In some of the situations, you actually become a surrogate part of that family and fill a void when the client dies for a period of time. So even people with support systems can utilize the Buddies program.
How old was your brother when he was diagnosed, and when he came to you about it, what was your reaction?
Well, my brother was, he was 43 when he died. And that was in 1993. And he was HIV, he tested positive in 1985 and was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS in 1989. So he was 40 years old when he was diagnosed, and it was 4 years before that that he was that he tested. But it was the first time he was ever tested, and he believes that he probably had been positive for many years because he was a very promiscuous gay man on both coasts and in Europe. And my reaction, I was sad and devastated. I knew he had lost many friends already, and they were friends of mine too. And it was very sad, and I knew that the course of this, I knew what the ultimate end of the course of this disease would be. And but I will say that when he told me that he was positive, I had to think about it and digest it for a while, called him back within hours and said, this is not something you have to deal with alone. He had many friends, but I didn't know what his circle of friends, how they were going to be. First of all, he was losing friends by the dozens, and I didn't know how many would be left, and so I told him I would be there. And I was.
I realize that this is the HIV discussion, but since you were talking about the social behavior and also the AIDS and prejudice that goes on, I want to know how all five of you agree with the protests that homosexuals have on campuses, especially ours here, and how they affect the people that...
You mean I'm sorry, the protests against the homosexuals? You mean the
Oh, well, okay, I think I understand what he's asking. I'm supposed to restate it anyway, so let me try. I think what you asked is, how do we view, what is our feeling about the pro-gay activism that has taken place this semester at IU campus? Well, I'm all in favor of it. Does that surprise you? I mean, it does have some bearing on the epidemic. The fact is that at this present time, most people in the U.S. who are living with AIDS are gay men. And that isn't really going to change very quickly. There are more AIDS cases and HIV cases with women and people of color, but there are still a lot of cases with gay men. And recently, the 18 to 25 gay male group has become more rapidly infected. I don't know if Jill has the exact statistics, but anyway, I think the ignorance of HIV and AIDS is certainly contributed to by the fact that people who also know absolutely nothing about gay, lesbian, queer, or bisexual people can say, oh, well, it's all gays that have AIDS. And you don't know what either one is. You wouldn't be able to point out every gay person in this room right now. But you think somehow you know, so that you can protect yourself because it's a gay disease. Well, why do you think that we need a culture center at IU? Because nobody has any concept. The average IU student who isn't gay, and many of them who are gay, have no understanding of what that means. And certainly the ability to just label a group and scapegoat them contributes to the spread of this disease. You don't have to take responsibility for yourself sexually because you're just automatically protected by being straight, which you should know as college students who are supposed to be educated even at IU is not the case. So it's an outrage what has been happening on this campus with regard to the oppression of gay people. We are citizens the same as everyone else. We deserve the same rights. And if you don't understand it, we have a right to make sure that you get educated about it. And that means taking tax money to do it. And if President Brand can stand up and say he's supporting diversity, let's put some money behind that statement and stand up for what he knows is correct, instead of just saying it's fine to be gay. It makes me so angry. I'm sorry.
I want to put the heterosexual two cents in. I think observing what homophobia does to families when you layer in the pain and suffering of AIDS, I think it behooves us to educate ourselves, to educate our children, educate those we love about what this is about, that we are a diverse population. I mean, I see people here in this room tonight who have tittered and laughed every time the word homosexual has been mentioned, and I feel sorry for them. This is something that's not going to go away. I think the comment about you don't even have any idea how many gay people are in this room, and certainly there are people in this room who aren't on this stage who are HIV positive in your midst. And it all goes down to education. and human dignity. And that's something I see sorely lacking on this campus. Human dignity is out the window.
Also, worldwide, the heterosexual population in Africa was where people really started dying in masses, and of course they don't have what we have in medicine. And right now, the infected homosexual population that is becoming sick is a population of people who have most probably been infected for 8, 10, 12, we have 15-year survivors here. So we're just seeing it, but as the virus spreads into other communities, at some point down the road, their numbers are going to start to grow. And homophobia is in fact a very important aspect of dealing with AIDS at this particular point in time. And Jeff revealing that his mother seemed to very readily get over the fact that he had what could be a terminal disease, but she was more floored to find out that her son was a homosexual is appalling to me. And as a caregiver for the last 5 years, I can tell you that that's not uncommon. It's okay that my son is dying, but I have little trouble with his lifestyle. That doesn't compute.
Yes.
I wanted to emphasize the width of the program that Lon is involved with, the Buddies program. It isn't just a matter of visiting with someone who is HIV positive maybe a couple of times a week. There have been several cases where a person chose to remain at home rather than spending the rest of his life in a hospital. And in cases like that, very often we have arranged 24-hour care, rather companionship with that person. No medical care involved. But this is so important. You have a tremendous range to your Buddies program. And it is not only very meaningful to the person who has AIDS, but it's also very meaningful to the persons who are providing the care. It's an expression of giving and caring that really enriches your own life.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the clients that you serve at Project Find? I mean, you see a group of individuals who are gay men. Is that the predominant space of clients at Project Find?
Predominantly, the population that Project Find serves through its support groups and other volunteer services are gay men. We have had IV drug users. We are now beginning to see heterosexual and bisexual individuals, women and men. The youngest client that we have served was a baby born with full-blown AIDS, born to a mother who did not know she was infected, had been in a monogamous relationship for 15 years, had never had another sexual partner except her husband, who brought HIV home. The oldest client that we have served has been in their late 60s, grandfather 9 times. So I think certainly we've had a wide age span. We've had people of color. When I look at our population of people that we're serving, we're also serving people not only in this county, but at times it's from as many as 10 counties here in South Central Indiana. Why? Because there are no other AIDS services. It's very, very difficult to be a person living with HIV in a small community, even smaller than Bedford. People are willing to drive many, many miles to be in a support group, or we're willing to send buddy volunteers many, many miles to help support someone because there are no services, operated in a town of 6,000 with a 4-way stoplight. That's the face of AIDS in rural Indiana. Yes.
Y'all have mentioned a lot about the lack of education, both in terms of AIDS, HIV, and the gay community and such. And I'm just kind of curious what steps you think would be most helpful or would be necessary to be taken in the immediate future here on this campus in order to better educate the students here about their gay, lesbian, bisexual community and about the AIDS epidemic.
Well, well. You have a wonderful resource right here on campus, health and wellness education. And I know between health and wellness and Project Find, other interested agencies here in town, we are more than willing to come to you and do presentations. And they're not all just cut and dried AIDS 101. We can do everything from talking with caregivers to doing a panel discussion in the living area to talking specifically about women and HIV, eroticizing safer sex. There's lots of ways to approach it. But we've got to get people talking. We've got to get people talking about how to communicate with partners. We've got to get people talking about homophobia. We've got to have people talking about how diverse we are and celebrating that rather than fighting about it. Sometimes I wonder if doing it at this level is too late. Ideally, it would start way back in the primary grades of elementary school. But we've got to go ahead and fill the gap. And I think that is each of us taking the responsibility of stopping today and saying, what have I done in the last year, not only to combat AIDS, but to combat all these problems that surround it. And a year from now, where do I want to be in my personal battle against AIDS? And it's something that all of us are facing. Whether you think it's part of your life now or not, by the year 2000, every single extended family is going to have at least one person in it with HIV. And you're already paying for it in your tax dollars. Yes?
Before we go on, can I answer the other part of that question?
Sure.
As far as what we need to do about teaching people about the gay community on campus, this semester was the very first time in my life that I ever put a pink triangle on my chest. And the reason for that was I've been out all of my life, 16 years. I mean, I'm 32 years old, so that's quite a long time. It's my entire adult life I've been out. But I'm dressed like you see now, or I'm whatever. I mean, I wasn't making an issue of it. I was in a PhD program, or I was working, or I was doing something. So it's like everyone knew, but I never made an issue. So everyone in my department, I thought, knew that I was gay, and they were dealing with it just fine. There was no problem. But there was a problem because people were shocked when I told them. They didn't know I was gay. Of course, they didn't know I was HIV positive. The point is, there are all these people on campus that are gay, and because they're successfully integrated with you, they're punished because you don't acknowledge that they're different from you. They are gay. And you think that you don't know anyone, and you make the environment so oppressive that they're afraid to be open. They think they're going to lose their jobs. They think that you're not going to be their friend, whatever. I mean, there's no job protection in many cases, so these are legitimate concerns. So this semester, I was out there with those people protesting, and I was wearing those little badges for the first time in my life and feeling like it was necessary. I've had enough of this crap. And what I found didn't really surprise me. It was that not the vast majority of people on this campus support the gay people. I mean, when I was out there passing out pamphlets and flyers, there were only 2 people who were obviously from some very right religious group that made, really crude remarks. The rest of people either just took the flyers or they said, they were encouraging whatever. So the idea is, I really feel like most of the people on this campus really don't have such a big problem with gays. It's just they don't really know who they are. They don't understand the issues. They don't know what they can do to support them. And so in addition to the fact that we need a center which can just be a resource, like an information resource for anyone on campus, gay or straight, to use, I feel that the gay community itself, which is very diverse and very screwed up and all of these things, has to try to reach out more to the straight community and say specifically what we want you to do. I mean, like in the case of this public funding not being used for the center, well, we weren't organized enough. I mean, we should have gone to all the straight people who supported us and really just ask them personally, can you sign this? Believe me, it's a lot easier for straight people to sign these petitions. You're not accused of being a special interest group if you sign a petition supporting gay rights. I mean, that's why I don't understand what the issue is. I mean, why is it so hard for straight people to go a little further than they're already going and do something if they feel it's the correct thing to do? And I just feel like most people on the campus do feel it's the correct thing to do, but they're just apathetic or confused or too busy. And we can't, I feel like that's the project of the gay community, the gay, lesbian, bisexual community here on campus for the next semester or year, whatever, we need to have more straight people involved. We need to have you understand who we are. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I have 2 questions, if I may. Firstly, how is it that people that aren't HIV positive or can battle the AIDS epidemic in ways other than just practicing safe sex? What can people do?
You learn to be real careful, number one. It may seem a little strange, but sometimes you don't go to the hospital to see a friend, which you'd really like to, but you know that for your own self's interest, health-wise, it wouldn't be too wise.
How do you mean? I don't understand.
I'm much more afraid of being in a room with you folks than you'll probably ever be afraid of being in a room with a person with AIDS. We're susceptible to everything and anything.
What you can do as an individual is to personally become more educated yourself. And when you're in a situation where someone says something about HIV or AIDS that you know to be untrue, have the courage to correct them in a nice way. Be educated. That type of education, that type of openness is very important. In my work situation, I'm personally supported by the administration, and at least once a year we give an AIDS update for all the employees in our facility. The same thing is true at the hospital. It's very important. Once again, we can't become complacent. This is not going to go away. It's only going to be more complex. And as new medicines come out, I've been with this for 5 years, and every week I learn new stuff. Every week I'm in a new situation. Someone asks a question about confidentiality that's a twist that I've not encountered before. But what you can do as a person is take charge and be educated and help educate other people. And sometimes when you're dealing with people in small rural communities, you have to be more gentle than you could be with a fellow classmate in a college setting.
I think one other thing that's really important is to know your own antibody status. I know a lot of people say, well, it's not, I couldn't possibly have HIV. I've only dated nice girls. I've only dated nice guys. I've only had 2 partners, or whatever. But those are exactly the reasons why people should be tested. There are a variety of testing options in this town. My personal preference is anonymous testing, where you don't have to give your name. That type of testing is available here. Take advantage of it before you decide to start a family or before you decide to enter a new relationship. Know what your status is. Early in the epidemic, people said, why should I want to know what my status is? Because there's nothing they can do for me anyway. I'm going to die. But the exact opposite is true now. Finding out if you are HIV positive at an early state in the infection is the very wisest thing that you can do, because we have so much more that we can do to improve your quality of life and keep you well longer. Yes?
This is more of a comment to the question that he started. There's a very real political aspect that anybody can become involved in terms of the HIV challenged community. The White and White Care Reauthorization Act is before Congress. Those congressional delegates that we send are going to be voting on that, and that funds a great many of the services that they're talking about. You could also, I mean, the president's despicable treatment of the position of the AIDS czar or whatever it's supposed to be is another issue that people can become vocal about that directly affects the everyday life of the HIV challenge community. Those are things that anybody can do. It's all that and more.
Yes.
What is being done medically to help you folks, and also what steps that you can do yourselves to try and increase your health?
Well, okay. Well, the question is, what is being done medically to help us? I guess you mean us personally. And what have we done ourselves to try to help ourselves? Well, that requires that I tell you some details. I was first diagnosed with pneumonia, so I had this AIDS-defining illness called pneumocystis pneumonia. That is a treatable condition. That's why if I had stayed in Japan, I would have died. They misdiagnosed it. There is medication for that is effective. So I have a very impaired immune system. So I am, as he said, I'm very susceptible to just about everything. But basically we're susceptible, the most dangerous things for us are certain types of illnesses called opportunistic infections. And I can't go into all of those, but I had one other one. When I was on a trip last year to the West Coast, I was on an Amtrak train and drank water there. And I got this infection called cryptosporidiosis, there had been several outbreaks last year, a major one in Milwaukee, and many people were infected with it, and something like 88 people with HIV died from that in contamination of public water. I had an amazingly successful reaction to a relatively experimental drug called paromomycin. It doesn't always work, I guess. But I'm very fortunate in that, and it seems to have been totally eradicated from my system. So right now, I have a very, non-existent almost immune system, but I'm doing really fine. I go to work out 3 times a week, and I take standard sort of prophylaxis. I take Bactrim to prevent pneumonia. There's a standard sort of prophylaxis for anyone that has less than 200 T4 cells, which is how the U.S. government defines AIDS, well, one of the ways. And so I'm doing sort of the conservative route, taking some of the standard antibiotics for that. I don't know if I should bother to say what they are. I take nutritional supplements that I'm trying to stay in shape and so forth, because recent studies have suggested that if you can maintain your weight or the proportion of lean muscle mass as a proportion of weight, that you are likely to be able to have a higher quality of life and live longer. So I keep working out, and I'm trying to keep weight on, and I'm trying to increase my weight. Although right now, for the first time in 2.5 years, I'm basically back to what my weight was about 5 years ago before anything happened to me. And beyond that, very important, we've already mentioned, I do things like, I'm willing to try anything at this point, if it's not harmful, such as chanting, yoga, meditation of any sort. I was in Seattle, and I didn't get to do it, but they have all kinds of things that I was interested in doing, like massage therapy. And I mean, some of these things, the idea that you can reduce stress. Of course, even in a person without HIV, stress can be a bad thing for someone who's already sick. I don't think it's going to save my life to reduce my stress, but it improves the quality of everyday life. And sometimes these things are fun anyway. You meet really interesting people.
We have time for one more question. Yes.
Why do you believe that there's a higher rate
Do you want me to answer? Well, obviously, it's the type of sex. I mean, if you know how AIDS is transmitted, there are certain behaviors that are very risky. One of them is penetration. Penetration, well, that doesn't happen in the same way between two women, right? So that reduces the risk tremendously. So that's the major factor, I would guess.
The other factor is that there's a higher concentration of HIV in semen than there is in vaginal fluid. Although HIV is certainly, present in vaginal fluid, it is an infectious body fluid for HIV, but that's another factor. Okay, I'd like to thank our panelists. I'm sorry.
This young lady right here has been trying to get
This young lady right here. Okay, break the rule. One more question. It's right here.
Answer this if you don't want to, but because of the last question that was asked, since you know that penetration is one of the things breaking of that in the blood and the fluid, did you ever use condoms to protect yourself when you were having sex with your partner?
The question is,
Did you protect yourself too?
the question is, did they ever use condoms to protect themselves? Yes?
Yeah, but apparently not enough.
Yes, I did, and I was very happy to find out. I saw an ex-lover of mine over Thanksgiving, and we had been very sexual, and I had been, to be very graphic, I mean, if we're talking about this, it was mostly me penetrating him, and so I was very concerned about that. But he's not positive, and we always use condoms. So I had always used condoms with whoever I was involved with. So.
Thank you very much. I want to remind you that this is Ann Reese, and if you're here for a class assignment or extra credit, she has these.